Well, well, well. Hello, dear viewer. Where are you from, huh? New York? Buenos Aires? Tinyville? Drop it in the comments and share this video. Let's make this party bigger. Let's get this show started. Derek Raines stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting his Italian silk tie for what felt like the third time. Sunlight filtered through the frosted glass above the sink, painting sharp-edged beams across the polished marble countertop. At 39, he had built his world from the ground up, a tech firm now valued at $50 million, a stately Westchester property that had appeared in Architectural Digest, and a marriage that, in his mind, others likely envied. The man reflected in the mirror looked every inch the success story. A strong jaw, chiseled by years of early morning sessions with his trainer, eyes that had closed multi-million-dollar deals and gained him admittance to executive suites around the globe, hands that once wrote the very first lines of code in a cluttered garage that smelled of solder and ambition. A Patek Philippe clung to his wrist, his trophy from his first major acquisition. It caught the light as he gave his tie one final tug. "You're going to own that room tonight," Jenna called from the adjoining closet. Her voice still carried the same musical lilt it had when they first met at a San Francisco Tech Summit 8 years ago. "That Hashimoto agreement's practically sealed. Just remember, they value relationships more than spreadsheets. Let Travis handle the figures." Her words brought a faint smile to his lips. That voice had once shattered his resolve to stay focused solely on business, to shut out love entirely. She emerged in a tailored black cocktail dress that highlighted every curve, her blonde hair swept into a chic twist, leaving her neck, the one he'd kissed earlier that morning, bare. Last Christmas's diamond earrings shimmered under the bathroom lights. Even now she could make him forget what he was saying. "Just drinks with Travis and Max," he said, reaching for her hand as she passed. Her skin was smooth, delicately scented, her nails still perfect from the spa day he'd gifted her for her birthday. "We're hammering out the final terms. The Japanese prefer in-person meetings before signing anything. I'll be back by 10, maybe 10:30. She leaned close and brushed her lips across his cheek, leaving behind the whisper of her favorite lipstick. Chanel Rouge. He could identify it instantly, one of countless details about her he'd memorized. "I'll be at the office late anyway," she replied, slipping her laptop bag over one shoulder. "The Henderson audit's a disaster. We're expected to have a draft ready by Thursday morning." Derek's brow creased. "The Henderson file? I thought that wasn't due until month end." She didn't miss a beat. "They moved the timeline. Clients are fickle, especially this one. Alan's cracking the whip." Alan Blackwood, the firm's managing partner. Derek had crossed paths with him a few times at corporate events. Polished, maybe early 50s, with a reputation for demanding excellence and long hours. "Want me to have Carla send something over for dinner?" Derek asked, referring to his assistant, practically a household name at this point. "That new sushi place you love delivers late?" "That's sweet, but I'll grab something from the office kitchen," she said. She gathered her laptop, her Hermes handbag, the one he'd surprised her with last Christmas after a 6-month wait, and the keys to her SL 500. "Don't wait up, could be an all-nighter." He watched as she walked out. The echo of her Louboutins striking the imported marble floor lingered even after she disappeared from view. Something stirred inside him, not outright suspicion, but a faint, unsettling feeling he couldn't quite name. Jenna had been pulling more late nights lately. The Henderson audit, the Morrison acquisition, reconciliation cycles, Yang Industries financials. There was always a reason to stay past midnight. He shook the thought off. Trust. Trust was the cornerstone of any solid marriage. And she had never given him cause to doubt her. Jenna was driven, laser-focused. That was what had drawn him in, back at that conference. She was the only one who truly saw the potential in what he was building, even when there were no profits to show for it. They had stayed up talking until dawn, trading ideas on scalability and market disruption, while others mingled over wine or debated sports scores. Their wedding had been the stuff of dreams. 500 guests filled the opulent ballroom of the Westchester Country Club, a sea of elegance and celebration. An orchestra played beneath sweeping arched ceilings. while the scent of rare flowers flown in from the Netherlands lingered in the air. Jenna wore a custom Vera Wang gown, easily worth as much as a high-end car, and she looked radiant. His mother wiped away tears of quiet joy. Her father shook his hand with conviction and said, "Take care of my little girl." Derek met his gaze and gave a firm promise he would. Chapter 2. The Groundwork. By the time the clock struck 7, Derek had already settled into his desk at Rains Technologies, his usual early routine. The headquarters, once a gritty warehouse now transformed into a sleek industrial space in a trendy downtown area, buzzed with ambition. He'd signed the lease back when it was just him, a few mismatched chairs, and 3 other dreamers chasing an idea. Now, the business occupied 4 floors and had grown into a team of 312 employees, all driven by the same mission, to revolutionize how financial institutions transferred money across borders. "Morning, Derek." Linda, the company's head of security, gave him a quick nod as he walked past. "Coffee's fresh. Travis is already in conference room A, buried in the Hashimoto data." "Thanks, Linda," he said with a smile. "Anything on fire I should know about?" "Nothing major. Oh, and happy birthday." He paused, confused. "Birthday?" "Company birthday. 8 years ago today, January 15th, 2017, you launched Rains. You hired me the week after." Derek let a slow grin stretch across his face. "One of my best decisions." Then he added with a wink, "Second best. Marrying Jenna comes first." For the briefest moment, something unreadable flickered across Linda's face, but it vanished just as quickly. She gave a polite nod. She's a fortunate woman. The morning swept by in a blur, code to analyze, executive meetings to guide, and a final dry run for that night's pivotal presentation. Travis Connors, his CTO and oldest friend from their MIT days, had built a deck as polished as anything pitched in a Fortune 500 boardroom. Max Renteria, their precise and numbers-driven CFO, had stress-tested every model and forecast. No matter the angle, the outlook was gold. If they landed this deal, Rains Technologies wouldn't just be innovative, it would be unstoppable. "The Japanese partners are particularly impressed with our encryption protocols," Travis said, clicking through a dense wall of charts and diagrams. "Their biggest question is scale. They currently process 300 million transactions daily." "We can more than handle that," Derek replied. "Our architecture supports up to 800 million with sub-second latency." Just then, his phone buzzed against the tabletop. A message from Jenna. "Might run late again. Don't wait up. Love you." Derek stared at the screen for a second, a faint frown touching his brow. That made it 3 evenings this week. Still, the Hashimoto pitch demanded his full attention. He tapped out a response. "Love you too. Hope Henderson goes well." From that point on, time dissolved. He thrived in the chaos, tweaking strategy, streamlining presentations, pushing every detail to its peak. This was his element. By the time 6 o'clock rolled around, he felt battle-ready for whatever questions the Japanese team might throw at them. "You sure you don't want a clean shirt?" Max asked, eyeing the faint creases in Derek's button-down. "I've got a spare upstairs." "No need," Derek said, slipping into his blazer. "Hashimoto values substance over style. He once told me guys with overly polished shoes were probably better at looking the part than doing the job." The drive to Capitol Grill took about 20 minutes, winding through the gridlock of early evening traffic downtown. Derek paused, centering himself with a deep breath as he mentally reviewed every vital point. This meeting had the potential to redefine everything, not just financially, but as undeniable validation that his vision extended beyond local hype. He briefly considered texting Jenna, tempted to share the buzz of nerves and excitement running through him, but let the thought go. She was probably buried under piles of audit reports. He'd update her later, once the whirlwind of the day had passed. If only he'd known that by the time he stepped into their home again, his entire reality would be upended. Chapter 3. The Capitol Grill. The Capitol Grill was a monument to wealth and influence, where corporate giants carved out fortunes over dry-aged steak and wines with price tags that eclipsed the average rent. The maitre d' spotted Derek almost immediately. Success had its privileges, Mr. Rains, your usual spot is prepared. Mr. Connors and Mr. Renteria have already arrived. Appreciate it, Philippe. We're also expecting Mr. Hashimoto and his interpreter. Certainly. I'll escort them over as soon as they arrive. Derek moved through the restaurant with practiced ease, exchanging brief greetings with familiar faces. There was Judge Morrison, who had overseen their incorporation, Diane Walsh from the Chronicle, who'd written their breakout feature, and Alexander Daniels, the same banker who had once declined their business, but now called monthly, eager to represent them. Their table, chosen with precision, sat in a prime corner, discreet yet commanding, private enough for candid conversation, but open enough to be seen. Travis and Max were already there, appetizers untouched, deep in conversation about integrating neural networks. Gentlemen, Derek said as he slid into the booth, are we ready to make a little history? More like ready to cash out, Max replied with a half grin. History's just the bonus. They laughed, an easy, familiar sound born of shared struggle and unlikely success. Travis had been there since day one, writing code in a garage filled with ramen cups and restless ambition. Max had joined later, bringing financial structure to their chaotic brilliance. Together, they had turned a napkin sketch into a $50 million enterprise. Hashimoto's flight touched down an hour ago, Travis said, glancing at his screen. He should be here any... He cut himself off mid-sentence, his expression shifting. Derek? What? Derek asked, scanning his face. Something wrong? Is that Jenna? Derek followed Travis's gaze across the room. For a heartbeat, time misfired, jagged and incomplete like a corrupted video. His mind struggled to piece together what he was seeing. Jenna. In the red dress. The red dress. The one from their anniversary. The one she'd spun around in, laughing in their bedroom, as he told her she looked like an old Hollywood star. The same dress she had carefully hung back in the closet afterward, saying it was too special to wear without cause. She was seated in a more secluded booth in the rear, just beyond a carved wooden partition that offered a little privacy. The low candlelight flickered off her hair, turning it to liquid gold. She leaned toward her dining companion, speaking animatedly, her hands moving with the passion she reserved for things that truly mattered. But it wasn't her energy that turned Derek's blood cold. It was the man beside her. Distinguished, polished, his silver hair perfectly styled, more the result of grooming than age. His suit tailored and unmistakably expensive. A Rolex on his wrist caught the light like a flare. And worst of all, his hand rested over Jenna's, their fingers intertwined with ease as though this connection was not new. Derek? Max's voice reached him as if through thick glass. You okay, man? You look like you just saw a ghost. Derek's mind scrambled for an explanation, grabbing at possibilities that fell apart as fast as he formed them. It could be a work thing. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe he was misinterpreting the moment. But no matter how hard he clung to those hopeful stories, his body had already betrayed the truth his brain was trying to ignore. He knew. The angle of Jenna's head drew his notice first. The way her eyes lingered, too long, on the man sitting opposite her. God, that look. Like she was basking in the warmth of a sun only he could provide, leaning toward him as if caught in its pull. Derek knew that look. He'd witnessed it before, on their wedding day, frozen in photographs, in the carefree joy of their honeymoon, in the reflection of her gaze when she used to see him. Gentlemen, Derek said, voice unnervingly calm. If you'll excuse me for just a moment. He rose slowly, measured like a man making his final walk to the gallows. As he stood, his phone slipped effortlessly from his pocket to his palm. Habitual, practiced. 3 quick taps and the recording began. His lawyer's voice played in his memory like a mantra. Record everything. In business, in life, documentation wins. Clearly that rule extended far beyond conference rooms and contract disputes. His footsteps echoed against the gleaming floor, each one stretching the moment. And yet he reached the table in seconds. Derek's mind sliced through visual cues like a programmer isolating a bug in the code. Jenna's finger, bare where a ring used to rest. Their bodies closer than friendship permitted. The champagne chilling beside them in an ice bucket. Cristal. The same brand they'd clinked glasses with on the night of their vows. She laughed then, head tilting back, throat bared in a way Derek had only just kissed that morning. Chapter 4. Collapse. Burning the midnight oil on the Henderson case, sweetheart? His words split the air like a scalpel through soft flesh. He watched her come undone before his eyes. First confusion, then realization, next dread. Finally, that hollow, ghost-white look people wear when their carefully constructed world begins to implode. The man, Derek guessed it was Alan Blackwood, jerked his hand away like he'd grabbed a hot stove. He pulled back, guilt clinging to him like static. Derek, it's not what it looks like. We were only... Jenna's voice faltered, tripped, and collapsed, desperate to reshape truth into something easier to swallow. Her fingers went instinctively to her collarbone, a nervous gesture he knew well, though never in this kind of context. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Derek dragged out a chair, slow and deliberate. The scrape of wood on tile sounded grotesquely loud in the sudden quiet. He sat with authority, a man used to closing billion-dollar deals. Composed, dominant, and seething just beneath the surface. The phone remained in his hand, steadily recording. The blinking red light bore silent witness, capturing the implosion of 8 years of marriage. "Please," Derek said, voice low and laced with venom. "Don't stop on my account. I'm fascinated. Tell me more about this work meeting. Is hand-holding now standard protocol in corporate consulting? Funny, I must have missed the memo." A smile stretched his lips, tight, cold, and utterly humorless. "Has HR signed off on this new, intimate approach to team building?" The man fidgeted with his tie, classic guilt reflex. "This is a misunderstanding. We were just..." "Oh, I see," Derek cut in, his laugh sharp as shattered glass. It rang out, ricocheting off nearby walls and drawing curious stares. "So let me piece this together. My wife tells me she's stuck late at the office with the Henderson audit. Meanwhile, I find her here, dressed like she's headed to a Met Gala after-party, sipping champagne with a man who looks like a knockoff Richard Gere from Pretty Woman." He leaned forward, eyes like frozen steel. "Tell me, what exactly am I misunderstanding? Please enlighten me." Jenna's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. She nearly knocked over the untouched flute of Cristal. "Derek, not here, not like this. Let's talk at home." "Oh, so now it's not here?" Derek turned and gestured for a waiter with the same confidence he used when closing mergers. The server approached cautiously, like he was stepping into a minefield. "A bottle of Dom Perignon," Derek ordered. 2008 if available. His smile returned, thin, deadly, surgical. "We're toasting my wife's promotion tonight. Could this be some sort of bold new tactic?" He swiveled back toward them, a sharp smile slicing through his face, cold and razor-edged. The kind of expression that once made seasoned competitors shrink in high-rise conference rooms across the city. "I must be mistaken," he said, his tone icily smooth. "She told me she'd be drowning in paperwork until midnight." Then with mock innocence, "Unless that's your nickname now?" His head cocked slightly. "Is spreadsheets what they're calling you these days, sir?" The waiter, clearly picking up on the rising tension, bolted toward the bar in search of champagne. All around, the room's quiet hum began to still. Heads started turning. At the Capitol Grill, a sanctum for hushed negotiations and discreet power plays, something uncharacteristically public was taking shape. The usual wall of privacy was cracking, and the dinner crowd was about to witness something rare and combustible. "The 2008 Dom Perignon, sir," the waiter panted, returning just in time for the main event. Derek gestured toward the bottle, his voice pleasant and sharp. "Only the finest," he said. "For my wife and her. What is he again? Boss? Business associate? A client, perhaps?" He leaned forward, extending a hand across the table toward Alan, every movement deliberate and slow, like a challenge. "Forgive me, didn't quite get your name," he said. "Derek Rains, the husband of the woman who seems to have forgotten I exist tonight. The man who paid for the dress she's wearing. Who bought her the perfume I can smell from 10 feet away. The same guy she kissed this morning before walking out the door like it was any other Tuesday." Alan didn't take the handshake. His voice was steady, his words carefully chosen, like a man who'd been in boardrooms where the stakes were legal, financial, and reputational. "Alan Blackwood," he replied. "And as I said before, there's clearly been a misunderstanding. Jenna and I were simply reviewing..." Blackwood, Derek repeated, as if tasting the name. He theatrically tapped his chin, a smirk dancing at the corner of his mouth. Now why does that ring a bell? Oh yes, senior partner at Hartley, Blackwood and Associates. The same firm where my wife just happens to be chief financial officer. The same Alan Blackwood who's been mentoring her through these strategy retreats that always, conveniently, happen somewhere far from our home. He raised an eyebrow. Tell me something, Alan. May I call you Alan? Is this what professional development looks like to you? Because I've mentored people before, and never once did it involve candlelight and Dom Perignon. Chapter 5. The Spotlight Burns. Derek, please, you're making a scene. Jenna's voice was tight, almost a hiss, barely above a whisper, the way someone speaks when their carefully managed life is unraveling in real time. Her eyes darted nervously around the restaurant. Recognizable faces filled the room, clients, co-workers, acquaintances, people who would no doubt be passing the story around over morning coffee. I'm making a scene? Derek leaned back slowly, just loud enough to be heard by neighboring tables. His voice had a new weight, like it had been sharpened for this moment. Let's talk about scenes, shall we? He tilted his head toward her, eyes scanning. You're wearing the La Pearl set I got you last Valentine's. I see the lace strap slipping out. Bit risque for a business dinner, don't you think? And Chanel No. 5, your special occasions only fragrance. The same one I wrapped for you that Christmas in Aspen. Funny, I didn't realize tonight qualified as a celebration. Also, Jenna, your wedding ring, where is it? The one that cost me 3 months' salary. The one you promised you'd never take off. Jenna instinctively touched her bare finger. The faint band of untanned skin said more than words ever could. The room, once buzzing with chatter, had gone eerily quiet. Now it was more like a courtroom, silent, charged, and grimly expectant. Some diners looked away, others couldn't. A few phones had been discreetly lifted, digital witnesses eager to preserve the moment for social feeds and group chats. Derek rose slowly from his seat, every movement exuding the poise and presence of a man who once captivated rooms filled with investors and global press. He turned toward the crowd, voice poised and fluid. Ladies and gentlemen, apologies for the interruption, he began, tone almost gracious. You came here expecting fine cuts of beef and quiet conversation. Instead, you got dinner theater. Seems I've just discovered my wife and I don't quite agree on what mandatory overtime looks like. But don't let us spoil your evening. Please enjoy yourselves. And rest assured, the drinks are on me. He reached into his coat and pulled out the instrument of his success, his phone. With a few practiced taps, he opened Facebook and went live, his face filling the screen. He looked calm, grounded, publicly composed even as his private life fell apart at the seams. Good evening, friends, he said. Derek Rains here, broadcasting live from the Capitol Grill downtown. Beautiful Tuesday evening in January, just happened to bump into my wife. Hard at work, apparently. Remind me, sweetheart, was it the Henderson account tonight? The viewership climbed at an astonishing rate. 50, 200, 500 and counting. Comments began to pour in, a flood of confusion, curiosity, and concern. Derek, what is this? Are you serious right now? Wait, this is real? Oh God, Jenna. Dude, cut the feed. No chance. Are you kidding me right now? Jenna lunged forward, trying to snatch the phone from his hand. Stop it. Just stop. Please shut it off. Derek, I'm begging you. But Derek stepped back with precision and ease, the kind of movement that only comes from years of disciplined training. Don't lay a hand on me. You don't get that right anymore, not after tossing our marriage aside for this. This morning you looked me straight in the eyes and lied. You kissed me goodbye, knowing exactly where you were going. The live stream's viewer count surged, 1,000 and rising. Friends, colleagues, family, all watching, front row, as the beautiful illusion of a flawless relationship went up in flames. Chapter 6. The Digital Crucifixion. Alan Blackwood shot to his feet, grasping for dignity as the situation spiraled. But the stoic mask he always wore like a badge of professionalism was starting to crumble. I need to go, he mumbled. This isn't my issue, it's between the two of you. Sit. Derek's voice sliced through the air. Authoritative, unwavering, The same tone that had sealed billion-dollar contracts and crushed rivals without a second thought. We're not done yet. You knew she was married, Alan? You didn't even wait for the ring mark on her finger to fade. And how she touched her neck the moment I showed up? That's her tell. She does it every time she's hiding something. Don't act like you haven't seen it during one of your so-called mentorship meetings. You weren't blindsided by a troubled marriage. No, you were a knowing participant in its destruction. Derek turned the phone toward Alan, placing his face front and center for the now 1,500 viewers. So tell us, he said, cool and cutting. What's your name, for the audience? Full name. They deserve to know who's been whining and dining their friend's wife behind closed doors. Alan's voice was quiet, nearly buried beneath the digital storm. But the mic caught it. Alan Blackwood. Let's hear it, folks, Derek said, his tone like poison under silk. Alan Blackwood, managing partner at Hartley, Blackwood & Associates. Husband to Caroline Blackwood, going on 23 years, if his LinkedIn's current. Proud father of two, one's at Harvard, the other's at Yale. Picture perfect. The same man who's been so graciously guiding my wife's professional growth. So, Alan, mind if I call you Alan? When did those career pep talks start including candlelit dinners and hand-holding? How long have you been helping Jenna realize her potential? The viewer count jumped to 2,000. The comments were a wildfire, disgust, shock, betrayal, flooding the screen in real time. Jenna's family began appearing in the chat. Margaret Sullivan, her mother, Jenna Marie Sullivan Rains, what is going on? Call me. Now. Rachel Sullivan, her sister. Jenna, no, please say this isn't real. Tell me we've misunderstood. David Sullivan, her brother. What the hell is this? Derek, is this actually happening? Caroline Blackwood. Alan, answer your damn phone. Please, Jenna wept, mascara trailing down her face like war paint in retreat. Please just turn it off. We can talk through this privately. This doesn't have to be on display for everyone. Oh, you think our life was ever private? Derek's voice was ice. Like our wedding, remember? The one where you swore before 500 people you'd be faithful? Or all those anniversary parties where you wrapped your arms around me and told the world how lucky you were? Remember the holiday party last month? The one where you stood up in front of everyone and gave that emotional speech, calling me your rock, your unwavering support? That very public declaration? Derek faced the camera again, his expression calm but unflinching. Let's get into the details. Miami, the corporate seminar from a few weekends ago. You know the one? You gave that slick presentation on risk management? Was Alan there? It's a simple yes or no. Jenna stayed quiet. The absence of an answer spoke volumes. What about that weekend trip to your sister's you canceled last minute? You told me you were seriously ill. Was that really the truth? Or was Alan the real reason you couldn't make it? A new message appeared instantly in the chat. Rachel. She told me she was sick all night, it said. I even offered to come over and take care of her. Food poisoning. Creative excuse. Let's rewind a bit more. Our anniversary dinner, remember that? 3 months back. You got a call at around 8 from the Hong Kong team. Said the Asian markets were collapsing. You rushed out before dessert even arrived. Tell me, Jenna, were you really putting out international financial fires? Or was your affair just crossing time zones? Travis Connors and Max stepped closer now, not saying much but standing firm, shoulders squared beside Derek. The scheduled Hashimoto meeting? Forgotten. There were more important matters now. Derek no longer stood alone in this moment. His friends were there backing him. Chapter 7, The Confession. That was the breaking point for Jenna. Whatever calm she'd been clinging to shattered instantly. All her efforts to keep this disaster under wraps collapsed. All right, yes. You want honesty? Fine. There it is. Yes. Her voice cracked as she spoke. Is that what you needed? Dragging me through the mud in front of everyone? She laughed bitterly. Congratulations, you win. Derek responded with a cold, bitter chuckle. Destroying your life? I'm not the one who treated our vows like optional guidelines. I'm not the one who's been living a lie every single day. His words came sharp, almost surgical. How long, Jenna? How many mornings did you look me in the eyes and just lie? How long have I been the fool thinking my wife was just working late? A crushing silence dropped between them. Then Alan, perhaps realizing there was no salvaging the lie, or simply too tired to keep pretending, finally spoke. 6 months. The words hit Derek like a blow to the gut. He didn't even need to think. The calculation was instant. Half a year. Roughly 180 mornings. You've kissed me goodbye every day while stabbing me in the back. You've whispered I love you with a mouthful of deceit. Every time you sat at dinner looking somewhere else. I get it now. Every moment we were close. God, Jenna, we were together just last Sunday morning. Was he in your head then? Were you comparing us in real time? The chat exploded. Friends, co-workers, relatives, all watching the slow-motion wreckage of a marriage they once believed was unbreakable. Someone pinged the HR department at Hartley, Blackwood and Associates. Jenna's company profile lit up with furious comments. Alan's wife entered the chat again and again, her anger pouring out in all caps. Caroline Blackwood. 6 months? Are you out of your mind? You lying piece of trash. My lawyer will be in touch. Margaret Sullivan. Jenna, how could you? Derek didn't deserve this. He's one of the good ones. How could you turn your back on him like that? Travis Connors. We've got your back, man. Just say the word. Linda Morrison. From Derek's own company. I should have trusted my instincts. Something always felt off. Jenna, he was never the man you deserved. May 15th. Trey D entered the room like each step might set off a mine. Philippe had hosted countless emotional meltdowns in his restaurant, but tonight was something different entirely. An emotional superstorm. Mr. Rains, if I may. Still holding Jenna's gaze, Derek handed over a sleek black American Express. Charge everything they ate and drank to this, he instructed, and send a bottle of your finest champagne to every table we disturbed. He added firmly, make sure it's premium. My sincerest apologies for the unexpected drama. Sir, that's incredibly generous, but... Philippe hesitated. I've been dining here for over 5 years, Derek said. I've sealed multi-million-dollar deals in this room, celebrated every major milestone of my career right here. Tonight, I'm celebrating something else. Liberation from a lie. He gave a nod. Send the champagne. Turning back to Jenna, his tone was cool, precise, carrying across the stunned silence of the dining room. Here's what's happening. You're going to pick up your purse, your phone, and whatever's left of your dignity, and walk out with Alan. Pick a destination, wherever people like you go to revel in betrayal. A sleazy motel? His office? He shrugged. Doesn't matter to me. By 9 a.m. tomorrow, expect a call from Steinberg and Associates. Ring a bell? The firm that drafted our prenup? The one you spent 3 weeks vetting before signing? The one that had that little clause about cheating? You remember, the one you laughed at. Said it was unnecessary. Because in your words, you'd never give me a reason not to trust you. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. Jenna stood, wobbly, like her designer heels had transformed into weights forged from guilt. You can't just throw me out. That's my house too. I have legal rights. Rights? Derek's tone turned to ice. Let's break down what's actually yours. The clothes, yours. The shoes, yours. They'll be waiting on the lawn in boxes by noon. Might want to rent a U-Haul. Forecast says rain by sunset. This is heartless. You're punishing me. Punishing? Derek tilted his head, glancing toward the live stream camera, now viewed by more than 3,000 people. What do you think, folks? Am I being cruel? Or simply honoring the contract she voluntarily agreed to? I'm giving her exactly what she asked for. A fresh start, a clean slate. And Alan... He turned toward the man standing beside Jenna. You should be grateful. I just eliminated the final obstacle between you and your dream life. Alan stared at his phone, panic growing as he scrolled through screen after screen. Missed calls, incoming messages. A digital disaster. This isn't legal. You can't record this without consent, Alan stuttered. This is slander, privacy invasion, psychological manipulation. California's a one-party consent state, counselor, Derek replied, his voice smooth, the corner of his mouth curling into a blade-thin smile. I run a tech firm. I'm more familiar with the law than most lawyers. And since I'm part of this conversation, the recording is entirely lawful. As for defamation, truth is the ultimate defense. And you just admitted, on camera, to a half-year affair with my wife. That's not slander, that's documentation. Turning back to the live stream, Derek addressed the growing audience. For those just tuning in, meet Alan Blackwood, managing partner at Hartley, Blackwood & Associates. Also husband to Caroline Blackwood. For how long now, Alan? 23 years? Derek glanced at the live chat. She seems upset. Scroll down. She left a comment. Caroline Blackwood's message shone like a spotlight. 23 years, 2 kids. And you threw it all away for someone who works for you? I'm calling my lawyer. Appreciate the evidence, Derek. Alan's phone buzzed again. He looked at it, then hit decline. The phone vibrated once, then again, insistently. You should probably take that, Derek said evenly, a steel thread beneath his calm tone. Sounds important. Chapter 9. The Fracture. Travis Connors emerged into view, quiet yet resolute. A solid reminder to Derek that he wasn't standing alone. On the other side, Max stepped in closer, a silent show of solidarity. The mood in the restaurant had changed completely. Alan Blackwood, who had entered like royalty not long ago, now sat frozen, watching the kingdom he'd helped build unravel before his eyes. Gentlemen, Derek said, turning to his friends with a measured calm, I apologize for tonight's interruption. Mr. Hashimoto can wait. Some things are more important than deals. Family first, Travis said with quiet strength. We've got your back. Derek gave them a grateful nod, then turned to Jenna, eyes settling on her for the last time. When you get home, your key won't work, he said, voice hard. The locksmith is already there. Your mother's offered you a place to stay. She also said her heart's broken. Look at the comments if you think I'm making it up. Right there, at the top of the message thread, sat Margaret Sullivan's post. Come home, Jenna. We need to talk. I can't put into words how disappointed I am. Your father would be heartbroken. Mascara streaked down Jenna's face in inky trails, smudging the makeup she'd so carefully applied. This is cruel, she cried. You're blowing everything up over one mistake. Derek's reply cut like glass. One mistake, he said, disbelief boiling in his voice. Missing an anniversary is a mistake. A stupid kiss at a party might be a mistake. But what you did? That wasn't a slip. It was 6 months of deception. 6 months of hiding, lying, and manipulating. That's not a mistake, Jenna. That's a choice. 100 choices. Every day, every night you chose to betray someone who would have given you the world. Who did give you everything. All around them, the restaurant had gone quiet. Any hope of privacy had vanished. It had become a performance, raw and real, a modern tragedy unfolding live for every patron with a phone in hand. It was Shakespeare for the digital age, betrayal, heartbreak, and rage captured in high definition. And don't act like this was only about cheating, Derek continued, his voice gaining force. You were setting up your exit plan, weren't you? Those wire transfers, the way you tracked every fight. You weren't just being unfaithful, you were building a case. Lining up to serve me divorce papers. Planning to scream abuse and walk off with half my life. Even the things I built before you were ever in the picture. Her face said it all, she didn't deny it. And suddenly it all clicked for Derek. The way she'd suddenly cared about the business. The odd questions about equity and shares. Her insistence on keeping every document just in case for taxes. A cold clarity hit him. My God, he said under his breath. You were going to gut me, bleed me dry while sleeping with him. This wasn't some drunken mistake. This was a setup. Chapter 10. The Aftermath. The maitre d' returned, waiters in tow, each carrying flutes of champagne to neighboring tables. It was absurd, almost surreal, luxury wrapping itself around catastrophe. Derek Rains was buying a round for the room, a farewell toast to his shattered relationship. He held up his own glass, just water. His mind needed clarity, not blur. To honesty, he declared, voice unwavering. To finally seeing things for what they are. To waking up. And to all of you enjoying your Tuesday dinner at Capitol Grill, you didn't just come for the steak tonight. You got a story to remember. Some diners lifted their glasses, caught in the strange energy of the moment. Others looked away, torn between discomfort and curiosity. But no one would forget it. Not tonight. Not ever. As Derek ended the live stream, his final words reached far beyond the elegant walls of the restaurant. To those who watched, who shared, who cared, thank you. Because sometimes the ugliest truths are the ones that need to be seen most. Deceit thrives in darkness, but once exposed, it begins to die. Derek chose to expose it. Sliding his phone back into his coat pocket, he retrieved his wallet and laid a hefty bundle of $100 bills on the table. "That's for the inconvenience," he told the waiter, who lingered, unsure of what to do. Then, turning to Travis and Max, he said, "Let's find a proper bar, anywhere but here." As they walked out of the restaurant, the sharp ring of Alan's phone echoed behind them. Jenna sat crumpled in her chair, unmoving, like a marionette with its strings abruptly cut. Derek felt nothing. It wasn't apathy. It was the body's defense, a curtain drawn over a wound too raw to touch. Numbness came not from strength, but survival. In the parking lot, Travis asked softly, "You holding up?" Derek didn't pretend. "Number, but I will." He inhaled, grounding himself, and spoke like someone drafting a recovery plan in real time. "First, we contact Hashimoto, push the meeting. Then I call my lawyer. After that, I head home and pack up Jenna's stuff. And then—" He paused, glancing toward the sky, a faint blur of stars drowned by city lights. "Then I figure out how to move on without her." "You've got us," Max said. "Spare rooms, couches, whatever you need." A flicker of gratitude broke across Derek's face. It wasn't much, but it was real. A fragile smile, the first since he saw Jenna in that red dress. "I know," he said. "That's why I'll get through this. Just not tonight." As their car rolled away, Derek's phone lit up like a switchboard. The video had gone nuclear. Journalists called nonstop. Old friends messaged. His mother left 6 voicemails. Derek ignored it all. That storm could wait. Right now, there were boxes to pack, pieces of a life to disassemble. He just had to survive the night. Chapter 11. The Viral Storm. By 3 a.m., Derek had filled 17 boxes. Jenna's clothes, neatly folded despite everything. Her jewelry, wrapped gently, as if spite couldn't quite take root. Books, framed memories, snow globes, each one a frozen echo from cities they once wandered hand in hand. Each item stung. Each belonged to a chapter that now read like fiction. Travis and Max stayed. They didn't talk much. They ordered pizza no one touched. Made coffee that went cold. Mostly they stayed close as Derek erased Jenna's presence from the home they once shared. The video had passed 100,000 views. News outlets circled the story like sharks. Tech CEO exposes cheating wife on video. Startup world shaken by Capitol Grill scandal. Infidelity goes live. Marriage implodes on stream. Husband catches affair mid-dinner. Watch the moment. Derek's phone never stopped vibrating. By the 20th unknown number, he switched it to silent. His attorney had been blunt. "Don't talk, don't delete, meet me at 8. By 4 a.m., Derek sat on the kitchen floor, surrounded by cardboard and remnants of a collapsed life. That's when he watched the footage. It was like watching someone else's pain, unreal yet intimate. His own anguish dissected in slow motion, Jenna's streaked mascara, Alan's unraveling, all captured from every angle. The comment section was a wildfire. "Icon. She earned it. Too far. Should have stayed private. Cheaters never change." Devastating. He was too kind. But the private messages hit hardest. Friends opened old wounds to show solidarity. Strangers thanked him for the courage they hadn't found. His sister in California offered to fly in. His mother left voice notes, torn between fierce love and deep embarrassment over the spectacle. At 5 a.m., Jenna reached out from her mother's number. "Where are the boxes?" Derek responded, "Front lawn, 11 a.m., bring a truck," she replied. "Can we talk?" He didn't write back. There was nothing left to say. Chapter 12. The Legal Front. David Steinberg's office occupied the highest floor of a towering skyscraper, looming over the city like a judge observing from on high. At exactly 8 a.m., Derek sat across from him, the same lawyer who had drafted his prenuptial agreement nearly 10 years earlier. Steinberg looked like he'd been battling insomnia, the strain of the last few days etched into his face. "This isn't how anyone wants to find out the truth," Steinberg said, sliding a cup of hot coffee across his immaculate desk. "But from a legal standpoint, You did everything by the book. The audio recording is fully admissible. Her confession couldn't be clearer. And the prenup? It's airtight. She was already halfway out the door, Derek said hoarsely, his voice ragged from a sleepless night. The forensic accountant you recommended uncovered everything. Hidden accounts, secret legal consults. She was preparing to portray me as distant and emotionally abusive. Steinberg gave a slow nod. That's a common tactic. When people are unfaithful, they often try to justify it by accusing their partner of the very things they're guilty of. He leaned in slightly. Now, let's talk strategy. For the next 2 hours, they meticulously built a legal approach with the care and intensity of drafting a military operation. The prenup clause. The agreement left no room for ambiguity. Any act of infidelity on Jenna's part would forfeit her claim to Derek's premarital assets, as well as anything gained through his company. She'd walk away only with what she had independently contributed, plus half of their modest joint savings, which barely totaled $50,000. She's not going to take this lying down, Steinberg warned. Her lawyer will try to challenge the contract, say she signed under duress. They'll argue the live stream was a form of revenge porn. They'll say you destroyed her career. Expect a barrage of claims. Let them come, Derek said, his voice like ice. I want it over, no dragging it out, final and absolute. By noon, Jenna arrived with a moving truck and her brother beside her. Boxes were already stacked on the front lawn, silent tombstones of a relationship that had officially ended. From the window of his home office, Derek watched her load them. Her movements were mechanical but seething, driven by rage and shame. The neighbors kept their distance, feigning disinterest, though a news van that had been circling the neighborhood crept by, cameras trained on the scene. Jenna approached the front door. As expected, the locks had been changed. She rang the bell. Derek didn't move. There was nothing left to say. Lawyers could speak the truths now, and they rarely needed apologies. Her brother, David Sullivan, shouted from the sidewalk, "You're heartless, Rains, a goddamn robot!" Derek pulled the blinds closed. There was work to do, code to write, a business to run, a life to reassemble. By 2 p.m., the truck was gone, so was Jenna. She didn't just leave the house. She left behind the final physical reminder that she had ever been part of it. Chapter 13. The corporate fallout. Hartley, Blackwood, and Associates had long prided itself on 3 ideals: confidentiality, ethics, and professionalism. But now, with one of its senior partners exposed in an affair with a subordinate, footage of which had spread like wildfire online, the firm found itself not just scandalized, but shaken to its foundation. An emergency board meeting was called at sunrise that Monday. Alan Blackwood took his seat at the expansive lacquered conference table where he once reigned without question. Now, he faced a line of partners dressed like prosecutors rather than peers. "Our image has suffered severe damage," announced Harrison Hartley, the firm's chairman, his voice grim. "We've already lost clients. Morrison Industries called this morning. They're moving their entire portfolio to Brennan and Associates." "It was a personal issue," Alan said, attempting to maintain composure. "It has nothing to do with my performance." "You were romantically involved with someone you had direct authority over," Hartley shot back. "That's a clear violation of our internal code." He paused, letting the weight of his next word settle. "But what makes this worse? It was careless. You were caught on a public stream. Now we're being tagged alongside headlines like #Capital Grill Scandal and Cheating CEO. The internal review that followed was both swift and damning. Jenna wasn't the first. 2 former employees came forward after the incident hit the web, their silence shattered by the public debacle. Their stories bore disturbing resemblances. A pattern emerged. Alan Blackwood had consistently exploited his position to engage in inappropriate relationships with female staff members, offering advancement and choice assignments in exchange. It wasn't just misconduct. It was manipulation wielded through power, and it had finally come to light. In less than 72 hours, Alan Blackwood was forced out of the firm and given a month to liquidate his shares. Not a single dissenting vote was cast. Jenna was let go that same day. The official explanation cited violations of internal policies prohibiting romantic entanglements between supervisors and their direct reports. But the truth ran deeper. Clients had begun issuing ultimatums. If Jenna stayed, their business would leave. In finance, one's image was worth its weight in gold. And Jenna's had plummeted to junk bond status. She tried to fight back, filing claims of unlawful termination, workplace harassment, and toxic culture. Her lawyer, Pamela Morrison, brought the case to the EEOC, but the evidence painted a damning picture. Emails confirmed clandestine meetings, expense reports masked as business dinners were in fact romantic rendezvous, and a blatant trend emerged: promotions, pay raises, and perks handed out during her affair with Alan. Further investigation revealed more than poor judgment. Jenna had leveraged her position to steer lucrative contracts toward preferred vendors who paid her under the table. The funds funneled through bank accounts tied to Alan. What had begun as a covert relationship spiraled into a wide-reaching scandal. With his career on the brink, Alan betrayed her without hesitation, hoping to salvage what he could. In his official testimony, he cast Jenna as the instigator, claiming she pursued him aggressively despite his insistence on professionalism. He presented selectively chosen emails to bolster his version of events, conveniently omitting his own inappropriate messages and advances. However, statements from other women told a clearer story. Alan Blackwood wasn't a victim. He was a habitual predator, a man who viewed junior staff as opportunities. Jenna wasn't the first to be used, and likely wouldn't have been the last. She just happened to be the one who took the fall in full view of the world. Chapter 14. Reverberations. The video from Capitol Grill didn't just trend, it detonated. It became a cultural flashpoint. Within a matter of days, pulling a Derek Raines entered the everyday lexicon, a shorthand for exposing betrayal boldly and publicly. The restaurant turned into a pilgrimage site, with patrons specifically asking for the table where the confrontation had unfolded. But the true tidal wave came not in views or shares, but in Derek's inbox. Messages poured in by the thousands, stories of deception, heartache, and long-held silence. To many, that clip was a wake-up call. One message lingered in his memory. "Mr. Raines, I'm a 34-year-old engineer. I just discovered my husband's been cheating on me for 2 years. I was going to stay silent for the children. But your video made me realize that silence only protects the guilty. I filed for divorce yesterday. Thank you for reminding me that facing a painful truth is still better than living a polished lie. Sarah M." Another message read, "I'm Alan Blackwood's daughter. I'm ashamed of what he did. Your video finally made sense of why my parents' marriage has felt dead for so long. My mom says she finally feels free because of you. She asked me to pass along her thanks." Emma B. Derek didn't reply to most messages, but he read every word. Each one reflected how his private fallout had become a collective mirror. What began as personal devastation had evolved into something more, a wave of reckoning washing over lives built on lies. Unexpectedly, his company didn't falter. It surged forward. The Hashimoto deal closed smoothly, after a rescheduled meeting where Mr. Hashimoto himself said, "A man who chooses honesty in his private life is one we can trust in business. We're excited to work together." In the weeks that followed, 3 top-tier VC firms reached out, eager to fund his next move. His leadership team rallied. They knew their CEO didn't hide from ugly truths or spin them into marketing fluff. Applications from elite talent flooded in, people inspired by his raw transparency. But no professional win could silence the stillness at home. Derek threw himself into his work like a man running from ghosts. 18-hour days became the norm. He coded until his eyes burned, sat through endless meetings until his throat ached, building and rebuilding until sheer exhaustion forced him into sleep. Dreamless, heavy, and silent. Chapter 15. Jenna's Downfall. As Derek's name climbed, Jenna's crashed with terrifying speed. The finance world, small and gossipy by nature, had seen the video. It became water cooler fodder, meme material, and cocktail chatter. Her name turned toxic. She submitted applications all across the city, then the state, eventually chasing even the faintest prospects wherever she could. The rejections were always professional, always final. "Your qualifications are impressive, but we've decided to move in another direction." Or simply, "We've filled the role internally." We don't believe you'd thrive in our work environment. The implication was unmistakable. No one was willing to gamble on the woman from that now infamous Capitol Grill footage. Her savings dried up far quicker than she had anticipated. The $50,000 she'd secured in the divorce once seemed like a buffer until reality caught up. 20 grand vanished almost immediately, swallowed by attorney fees. What remained was quickly eaten by relocation expenses, storage rentals, and the deposit on a cramped studio in a rough neighborhood. She had once grown used to the ease and elegance Derek's wealth provided. Alone, she couldn't even come close to keeping up that standard. Help from her relatives came with too many conditions. Her mother's criticism was ever present, an unseen weight pressing on her daily. Your father would be disgusted. Those 5 words became Margaret Sullivan's anthem. Her siblings were polite, but the space they kept from her was obvious. Her scandal hadn't just marred her own reputation, it had rippled through the family. Alan had vanished without warning. All his sweeping promises, his vows to leave his wife, to start a life together, dissolved the moment their affair became public knowledge. He ran back to Caroline, claiming he'd been temporarily insane, blaming everything on a midlife breakdown and Jenna's supposed manipulation. He painted himself as a victim, and, somehow, people believed it. 3 months after her life collapsed, Jenna ended up with a part-time bookkeeping job at a small plumbing company. She barely managed to make rent. A woman once responsible for overseeing multi-million-dollar investment accounts now spent her days logging invoices for leaky sinks and toilet repairs. The irony didn't escape her. Therapy brought some clarity. Dr. Patricia Rains, no familial connection, specialized in helping those entangled in very public downfalls. With her, Jenna began peeling back the reasons for her choices. I felt unseen, she admitted during one session. Derek was always out conquering the world, and I was just his accessory. Alan made me feel like I mattered, like I was someone. Dr. Rains gently asked, and now? Now I know the power was mine all along, and I used it to destroy the things that were actually good. Chapter 16. A glimpse from the past. 6 months had slipped by since the Capitol Grill fiasco, when Derek stopped in for a quiet lunch at a modest Thai restaurant. That's where he spotted her. Jenna sat alone in a shadowy booth, absent-mindedly stirring her noodles. She resembled a hollow version of the woman he used to love. Gone were the designer clothes. She wore practical, inexpensive business attire now. Her once confident presence had collapsed into a hunched, guarded stance. Their gazes met across the room. Time seemed to freeze. Derek had pictured this moment more times than he could count. He had crafted speeches, imagined the cold silence he would wield like a weapon. He thought he'd feel victorious seeing her brought low, but as he took in the sight of her, fragile and worn, he felt nothing. His fury had long since burned out, leaving only ashes behind. He stood, settled his bill, and made his way toward the exit. Then suddenly he paused at her table. Jenna. She glanced up. Derek. Her voice was faint, almost inaudible. I come here sometimes, she said quickly. I can leave. No need, he replied. It's a public place. Silence stretched between them, thick and uneasy. Years of shared life reduced to an uncomfortable moment between estranged acquaintances. I'm sorry, she murmured at last. I know it doesn't change anything. I know you probably don't care, but I am. I'm sorry. For all of it. For all of it. For becoming the sort of man capable of doing that to her. For what they once shared. Derek studied her, the woman he had once vowed to spend forever with. This what you were after? Are you happy with him now? He asked. Jenna responded with a sharp, hollow laugh. That was all the answer he needed. He bailed the second things got complicated, she said, her voice flat. Acted like I'd seduced him, said I manipulated the whole thing, played the victim card. Her smile was laced with acid. His wife forgave him, by the way. They're patching things up in therapy now. She glanced at Derek. Kinda poetic, isn't it? Karma doesn't miss, he muttered. Jenna sighed and poked at her pad thai like it had offended her. I heard your company's killing it. That Hashimoto deal, it's a big one. We're holding steady, he replied. Nothing explosive. Solid growth. She nodded slowly. That's good. Then a pause. I probably don't have the right to ask, but how are you really? Derek let the question settle. What was the real answer? He had money, accolades, a thriving business. People counted on him. But he couldn't recall the last time he truly let someone in. I'm making it work, he said eventually. Moving forward, building. I date when I can, but time's scarce. Jenna's voice broke in, gentle but intent. Don't let what I did ruin what's still ahead for you. You're a good man, Derek. Someone out there will see that, will protect it. Don't let my failure sabotage your future too. His eyebrow lifted. Pretty profound, coming from the woman who cheated on me for 6 months straight. I'll be sure to print that on a coffee mug. She flinched but didn't fight it. Fair, she whispered. I had something incredible and I wrecked it. Please don't do the same. Don't throw away what you still have left. Derek walked away without a word. But as he headed toward the office, her words followed him. Don't let my waste become yours. Even from her, maybe those words mattered. Chapter 17. The New Beginning. Elena Vasquez was brilliant, magnetic, and had zero tolerance for nonsense. Derek first encountered her at a blockchain conference, 8 months after finalizing the divorce. She was the keynote speaker, tackling the future of decentralized tech in pharma R&D. Her delivery, flawless. Her command of the subject, undeniable. But what happened next caught Derek's attention even more. A smug investor tried to mansplain her research back to her. Elena didn't flinch. I hold dual PhDs from MIT and have 16 patents, she said calmly. I don't need a lecture on my own work. Either write the check or step aside. Derek laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long while. She heard it, turned, and locked eyes with him. Later that evening during the mixer, she approached. You're the guy from Capital Grille, right? He smirked. Is that what I'm known for now? She raised an eyebrow. Well, you also founded Rains Technologies, designed the dual encryption transfer protocol, scaled a startup from your garage to a $100 million powerhouse, and went viral by shredding your ex on a live stream watched by 50 million people. You've done your homework. I invest in people, not just products. I like to know who I'm backing. She held out her hand. Dr. Elena Vasquez. I'm building a biotech company that's going to revolutionize how medicine moves through the human body. Her grip was firm, her confidence unwavering. Derek Rains, he said. I run a fintech company and apparently a headline machine. Buy me a coffee, she said, and break down your encryption protocol. Your white paper was clean, but light on the implementation. Did you happen to read my white paper? I read anything that catches my interest. Coffee? In the cozy lounge of a boutique hotel, definitely not the Capital Grille, they sipped bold espresso and dove into a sprawling conversation that ranged from cutting-edge tech to future possibilities. Elena challenged him with sharp, thoughtful critiques, pointing out flaws in his reasoning, then expanding on his ideas with surprising insight. She didn't bother with the usual pleasantries others use to skirt the more uncomfortable truths. So that video, any second thoughts? You mean about the marriage or making it public? The broadcast. You could have kept it behind closed doors. Derek paused. I could have. But if I hadn't gone public, Jenna and Alan would have controlled the narrative. She was already planting seeds, painting me as cold, absent, emotionally checked out. He'd have spun it as some inevitable tragic accident. They would have run with it. So you pulled the rug out from under them. Exactly. And painted yourself as the guy who burns the whole thing down when crossed. Does that bother you? Elena's smile was sharp. Honestly, it's a bit of a relief. I've known too many men who pretend to be kind while quietly sabotaging you. At least you're up front. You draw a line, and if someone crosses it, there are consequences. I respect that. Even if I live stream our first fight, we don't fight in public, easy fix. They stayed until last call, the conversation flowing until they found themselves strolling through the city under a sky shifting from black to gray. By dawn, Derek felt it, an almost imperceptible shift. The emotional fortress he'd built over years of betrayal and disappointment had developed a crack. Full honesty, he said as they waited for their rides. I'm not simple. I've got baggage, trust issues, I bury myself in work. And there's that whole internet meltdown thing. Fair warning, Elena shot back. I'm intense. I don't flinch at prenups. If I say I'm working, I am. And the Capitol Grill, completely overrated. Marry me, Derek joked, then immediately chuckled. Kidding, let's just start with dinner. Anywhere but Capitol Grill. Deal, never that place. Their first date was at a tiny sushi bar Elena adored. For the second, they cooked together in Derek's apartment, the first time he'd let someone in since Jenna had walked out. The third was a black tie charity gala. As soon as they entered, heads turned. People whispered. All eyes drifted to the woman beside him. Elena didn't flinch. When someone inevitably brought up the video, she redirected with practiced ease. Ancient history. What's next is what matters. Did you know Derek's company is about to shake up global finance? She was sharp, effortlessly poised, unshakably strategic. Chapter 18. The Attempted Reconciliation. 14 months after the Capitol Grill scandal erupted, Jenna made her final move. By then, she'd lost nearly everything: her career, her reputation, her place in elite circles. Alan had vanished without a word. Her family had pulled away. She was in therapy now, attending a support group for women who kept torching their own lives. Slowly, she was attempting to rebuild from the ruins. Then came the email. It landed on a Thursday afternoon. Subject: just one more thing, Derek. I know I have no right to reach out. I understand you've moved on. Elena seems like a strong match. You deserve the peace you found. But there's something you need to know about the Hashimoto situation. When I was still with Alan, I overheard something important. His firm is backing a competitor, one that's targeting your patents. They've obtained confidential intel, leaked documents from your company, from the time of our divorce. Alan was playing both sides. I kept evidence, screenshots, emails, even recordings. Not out of malice, just insurance. I realize I've given you every reason to doubt me. But this could unravel everything you've worked for. If you're open to it, I'll be at the 5th Street Starbucks tomorrow at 2 p.m. If not, I'll deliver the USB to your attorney. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not looking for a payout. I just want to make one right choice. Jenna. Derek stared at the email, expression unreadable. Then with calm efficiency, he forwarded it. First to his legal team, then to his head of security, and last, to Elena. This might be a trap, Elena said under her breath, reading the email over Derek's shoulder as they ate their morning toast. Or maybe it's her way of making things right. What does your gut say? That she knows something I need to hear. If this could put the company in jeopardy, Elena replied, then go. But don't go by yourself. The following day, Derek walked into a Starbucks. Mike from corporate security waited nearby, and his lawyer stood by, ready to pick up on the first ring. Jenna was already there. The sight of her was startling. The commanding presence, the magnetic charm, gone. In her place was someone stripped down by scandal and grief. Yet somehow, she seemed more real than ever. Her clothes were simple, her manner subdued, the spark of vanity that once defined her nowhere in sight. Thanks for coming, she said quietly. You've got 5 minutes, Derek replied without sitting. She slid a USB drive across the table. This has everything. Alan double-crossed you. His firm gave proprietary details to Matsuda Industries while supposedly guiding you through the Hashimoto deal. They plan to contest your patents after the merger using bogus claims of prior invention. The evidence was taken. Derek picked up the flash drive and tucked it into his jacket. Why are you giving me this? Jenna gave a dry, almost bitter chuckle. Because there's nothing left for me. My job's gone. My reputation's toast. My marriage fell apart. I've lost everything. Maybe this is my last shot at doing something decent. Maybe I want Alan to pay for what he did. To both of us. Does it matter why if it helps you protect what you've built? No, Derek said after a pause. It really doesn't. I've been in therapy, she continued, voice steady. My therapist says I've got narcissistic traits, that I mistook praise for love, thought recognition meant I mattered. She says I blew up my life chasing validation I already had, if I'd just known where to look. And now? Derek asked. I work at a nonprofit. We help women leave abusive homes. Ironic, isn't it? I emotionally tore down the kindest man I ever knew, and now I teach women how to spot that kind of manipulation. But maybe that's why I'm good at it. I recognize the poison. I used to serve it. Derek studied her. This wasn't the woman he had loved, nor the one he'd divorced. This was someone reformed by loss and clarity. I hope you find peace, he said honestly. And I hope you find joy, she replied. Not just victory, not just being right. Real joy. The kind we had in the beginning, before I suffocated it, trying to grasp at more. As Derek rose to leave, she added softly, I know you'll never forgive me. I haven't forgiven myself either. But I need you to believe this. Loving you was the only thing in my life that felt real. The only thing that wasn't an act. I just realized it too late. Derek walked out without turning around. The USB held clear, indisputable proof of deception and corporate espionage. His legal team moved swiftly, killing the threat and launching a case that toppled Alan's firm. The scandal destroyed Alan Blackwood's career and led to formal charges. Derek never spoke to Jenna again, but word eventually reached him. She stayed with the nonprofit, dedicating herself to quiet, purposeful work, building a life rooted in something truer than ambition. In time, Derek understood something vital. Redemption isn't always about retrieving what was lost. Sometimes it's about becoming the person who would have never lost it in the first place. Chapter 19, The Wedding That Healed. A little more than 2 years after that quiet Starbucks meeting, Derek Rains stood at the altar, marrying Dr. Elena Vasquez. This wedding was everything his first had failed to be. Gone were the hundreds of VIPs and flashing cameras. This time just 50 guests surrounded them, each one genuinely important. Gone were the opulent decorations and polished country club setting. Instead, they stood on Elena's family ranch in Colorado, under open skies, with mountains rising in the distance and wildflowers growing just as nature intended. Everyone invited had stood with them through hard times, had seen their flaws, and loved them anyway. This was a celebration of presence, not spectacle. Travis Connors stood at Derek's side as best man. Max Renteria and 3 childhood friends rounded out the groomsmen. Maria, Elena's sister, was her maid of honor, joined by a circle of women from her research team. More than colleagues, they were her chosen sisters. The ceremony unfolded with a quiet elegance, humble, sincere, and free of spectacle. They had chosen to write their own vows, speaking from a place of raw truth and deep emotion. Derek's words reflected the growth he had undergone as a man. Elena, he began, I won't pretend to be flawless, but I promise to be real. I've learned that love doesn't shout, it shows up. It's the daily decision to be honest, especially when the truth is uncomfortable. I promise to bring my whole, imperfect self to you, to let you witness not just my strengths but my flaws, to create more than just a life together, to lay down a foundation that can weather anything. And I swear I'll never take you to the Capitol Grill on a Tuesday night again. That last line sparked laughter from those who knew the backstory all too well. Elena's vows matched his in honesty and grace. Derek, it was your truthfulness that pulled me in long before anything else, she began. In a world where it's easier to perform, you chose to be real. You showed me that courage doesn't mean being untouched. It means trusting someone enough to be vulnerable. I promise to be worthy of that trust, to guard the bond we have like something sacred, to help craft a life built slowly, steadily, and always in truth. And I vow to tell you the truth, even if I'm only stuck late at work. Then came Travis Connors' turn to speak, a best man speech that was equal parts heartfelt and hilarious. I saw Derek at his lowest 3 years ago, Travis said, his voice steady. But what people don't realize is that night shifted something in me too. Watching him stand tall in the face of betrayal made me take a hard look at the lies I'd let linger in my own life. I went home that night, came clean to my wife, and we rebuilt, honestly. We're better now because Derek taught me that lies, no matter how small, are just delayed explosions. He looked toward Elena and added, You're marrying someone who doesn't just walk with integrity, he leads others to it. Others spoke after him, their stories echoing a shared truth. Max spoke of finding the strength to walk away from a damaging business deal after watching Derek's example. Linda from security shared that she finally reported her supervisor's misconduct because Derek had made her believe silence was complicity. Even the wedding photographer admitted she'd ended her engagement, recognizing she had been compromising on honesty. Later, Elena stood to share a few words of her own. "I used to think the video Derek made was about payback," she admitted. "But I see it clearly now. It wasn't vengeance, it was clarity. He didn't just reveal betrayal. He illuminated a choice we all face, the easy path of deception or the difficult road of truth. Derek chose the harder way, and today I choose him. I choose a life built on that same foundation, not in spite of the difficulty, but because of it." The reception carried that same spirit, personal, meaningful, and real. No towering fondant-heavy cake trying to impress. Instead, they served a dessert baked from Elena's grandmother's treasured recipe, made with love. There was no elaborate orchestra, just a small local band playing songs that filled the dance floor. No speeches filled with fluff about success or wealth. Just friends and family telling sincere stories, sharing real laughter, and embracing joy without filters. Their first dance was set to a gentle Spanish guitar cover of At Last, Elena's choice. It was tender, stripped down, and full of quiet emotion. As they swayed together, Derek leaned in and said, "Any regrets about marrying the guy who once took you to Capitol Grill on a Tuesday?" Elena laughed softly. "Only that it took us this long to find each other." "Not wasted time," he replied, "just the journey we both needed. I had to learn the true cost of dishonesty before I could fully treasure truth. And you had to build something strong on your own before realizing you didn't need anyone's permission to be whole. We crossed paths when we were finally ready," she said. She gave him a playful look. "Listen to you, sounding all wise and poetic." "Must be the altitude," he said, "or the tequila." "Maybe both," she grinned. And in their laughter was something deeper still. The sound of wounds mending, of a future anchored in something unshakable, the quiet strength of love built on truth. Chapter 20. Aftershocks. What occurred at the Capitol Grill didn't just alter Derek's life, it ignited a broader conversation. The incident evolved into a cultural touchstone. Ethics professors dissected it in lectures, examining the delicate balance between honesty and personal privacy. Therapists referenced it when helping clients navigate the emotional aftermath of being publicly exposed. At top business schools, it became a case study in damage control, particularly Derek's decision to embrace full transparency, a move that, against expectations, enhanced his credibility. 3 years passed before a documentary filmmaker approached Derek with the idea of telling the whole story. At first, Derek resisted. It was Elena who persuaded him to reconsider. "You've already made a difference to so many," she told him. "Why not let it reach farther?" The finished documentary, Truth at All Costs, The Capitol Grill Incident, blended personal reflections with first-person interviews. Derek spoke honestly about the trauma of betrayal and the long, hard road to recovery. Travis Connors and Max Renteria reflected on loyalty, healing, and the strength of enduring friendship. Caroline Blackwood offered a vulnerable account of what it was like to uncover her husband's long-standing deceit. The film touched viewers deeply. Many said it inspired them to make major changes in their own lives. Psychologists weighed in on the emotional weight of public confession. Even Philippe, the waiter from that unforgettable night, shared how the incident changed public perception of the restaurant. 2 notable voices were missing. Jenna and Alan chose not to participate. Yet the film's most powerful moment came from someone completely outside the story. Sarah Mitchell, a woman who had survived years of emotional abuse. She described how she had been gaslit for so long, she began to mistrust her own reality. Watching Derek's viral confession gave her the strength to take action. She hired a private investigator, collected proof, and finally left her husband. "His courage reminded me that truth has power," she said. "You don't have to stay silent to protect someone who never protected you. What was his darkest moment became the light that led me out." The documentary premiered at Sundance to thunderous applause. Derek and Elena walked the red carpet, still learning how to navigate a fame born not of success, but of collapse. A reporter asked, "What's it like to know your pain inspired others?" Derek hesitated, then replied, "If what I endured helps even one person find their voice, then it was all worth it. When we share our deepest wounds, they can be transformed into something greater. That's the strange power of going viral. It reminds us we're never truly alone. Chapter 21. Coming full circle. Half a decade had passed since that night at the Capitol Grill, and Derek's life had undergone a dramatic transformation. Raines Technologies had gone public, reaching a staggering valuation of $2 billion. Derek and Elena had become parents, first to Sophia, a keen-eyed daughter with her mother's elegance and her father's tenacity. Not long after, their son Miguel arrived. Derek built the company with the same principles that had carried him through his personal crisis. Brutal honesty, taking responsibility, and the belief that integrity and achievement must go hand in hand. Performance evaluations were rigorous and transparent. Mistakes weren't hidden. They were examined and used as fuel for improvement. The employee handbook made it clear: we choose truth over comfort, growth over pride, and ethics over profit. And it worked. Raines Technologies became known as one of the most respected workplaces in the tech sector. Employee retention was high. Creativity thrived in a space where people didn't have to pretend. Without intending to, Derek also became an advocate for people blindsided by betrayal. He never sought the attention, but when letters and messages poured in, he responded. In time, he founded a nonprofit, Truth After Betrayal, to help people facing infidelity and deceit navigate their legal options. They offered tools to collect evidence and understand their rights. One afternoon, while reviewing candidates for the nonprofits board, a name on an application stopped Derek cold. Jenna Sullivan. She had gone back to her birth name. Her application was detailed, thoughtful, and sincere. She had spent the past 3 years working at a shelter for domestic violence survivors, earned a crisis intervention certificate, and now wanted to use her experience to support others. Her personal statement was brutally honest. I'm the woman from the Capitol Grill video. I betrayed my husband, broke our marriage, and lost everything in the fallout. But in that loss, I found something essential: accountability. I've spent 5 years in therapy trying to understand my choices. I haven't worked to repair my image, because that's gone, but to become someone better. I know I'm probably the last person you'd expect to support people who've been betrayed. But maybe that's why I should. Because I know the damage from both sides. I'm not here asking for forgiveness or approval. I just want to use my worst chapter to help someone else avoid writing it. Derek lingered over the application for a long while, eyes fixed but unmoving. Eventually, he passed it along to the board with a note that was as brief as it was deliberate. Assess on merit alone. The board did as asked. Jenna was given the green light. Their initial board meeting together felt oddly surreal. She showed up early, chose a seat farthest from the center, and immersed herself in her documents. When Derek entered, their eyes met for a split second. A slight nod from him. A subtle return from her. Nothing more needed to be said. Jenna thrived in the role, smart, reliable, and unflinchingly honest about what it meant to cross lines and come back from it. Her insights sharpened the company's purpose. She never made overtures toward Derek, never leaned on their past. She simply delivered, day in, day out. Chapter 22. The Real Challenge. The true test facing Derek didn't come from Jenna's presence. It came from something more insidious. As Raines Technologies soared, the same moral pitfalls that had once sabotaged his first marriage began creeping back into view. Then came Aaliyah. Bright, driven, magnetic, in ways that echoed Jenna's earlier energy just a little too much. They were in Tokyo for a business trip, celebrating the close of a huge deal over more sake than Derek should have had. That's when she crossed the line. "Your wife's back in the States," she murmured, fingertips grazing his arm. "Tokyo has its own rules, doesn't it?" Derek stopped her cold. "Not if I plan to sleep tonight," he said, gently removing her hand. "I'm married, I'm content, that still counts." She looked at him, half teasing, half hurt. "Even after everything?" "What I want," he replied, "is to look my wife and kids in the eye without feeling ashamed. That's worth more than any fleeting escape." He stepped out into the night and immediately called Elena. "I need to tell you something," he said. "She made a move, didn't she?" Elena asked, not missing a beat. "Aaliyah? Not surprising. You've got money, power, and that brooding survivor charm. But how do you stay centered?" Because it's 3 a.m. in Tokyo and I'm telling you the truth anyway. Exactly, she said. You told me, even though you didn't have to. That's who you are now, and that's why I love you. I love you too. Fire her when you land. Already working on the draft. The story quietly made its way around the office. The CEO had stopped something before it ever began, and acted on it without delay. It became a cornerstone of company culture. Integrity wasn't a rule employees had to follow. It was a value demonstrated from the top down. Chapter 23. The Next Beginning. As Sophia grew older, so did her awareness. She started to notice things. The sideways glances, the occasional photo request, the way certain places were somehow off limits. "Daddy, why did that man want a picture with you?" she asked one afternoon after a stranger approached them in the park. "He said you're famous." Derek and Elena had known this day would come. They'd talked often about how to handle it, how much to reveal, and when. "Sometimes people remember someone for a moment they saw," Derek explained, gently pushing her swing. "I had one of those moments. It was tough, and a lot of people witnessed it, but it helped others deal with their own hard moments too." "Was it when you were really sad?" Her intuition was sharper than her age would suggest. "Yes, sweetheart, I was very sad, but that sadness led me to Mommy, to you, to your brother." "So sad things can turn into good ones? Like when my blocks fall and I build a cooler tower?" "Exactly like that." As the kids got older, Derek and Elena chose to live openly. They didn't fake perfection. They disagreed sometimes, not in screaming matches, but in honest, respectful conversations that always ended in resolution. They apologized, owned their flaws. They taught their children that love isn't about never fighting. It's about always telling the truth and returning to each other afterward. Even the Capitol Grill, once a quiet backdrop to one of Derek's most vulnerable moments, leaned into its odd fame. Philippe, still running the floor, watched business surge in the aftermath. Eventually, they installed a small plaque at table 47, the Truth Table. It was a simple tribute to the night when honesty stood front and center. People came from all over, drawn to that table when they found themselves at a turning point. It became more than a reservation. It became a reminder that clarity, conviction, and truth, even in difficult moments, can shape more than a decision. They can shape a life. Chapter 24. 10 years had gone by since the moment that had shattered Derek's world. Now he stood confidently on the stage at Stanford's Graduate School of Business, facing an auditorium filled with students and faculty, all waiting to hear his perspective on leadership in a time when secrecy is nearly extinct. The irony of it wasn't lost on him. What had once been the most excruciating moment of public shame in his life had over time become a symbol of perseverance and reinvention. "A decade ago," he began, his voice steady, "I thought achievement meant hitting financial benchmarks. I thought love meant certainty, and I figured reputation was just about curating the right image." He let the silence linger before adding, "I was wrong on all counts." With a press of a button, an image appeared behind him, a frozen frame from the notorious Capitol Grill livestream. Next to it, a staggering view count, 127 million and still climbing. "This is what failure looks like in our world today," he said. "It's visible, it's lasting, it cuts deep, but it's also a powerful teacher. If you confront it honestly, it can be the cornerstone of something better." He recounted the years since that incident, not just the revival of his company, which had clawed its way back to a $5 billion valuation, but his own internal transformation. He talked about rebuilding trust, meeting Elena, learning to lead with vulnerability instead of pride. He spoke about the countless messages from strangers who found their own courage in his darkest moment. "Leadership isn't about perfection," Derek said. "It's about authenticity. It's about facing uncomfortable truths, sometimes out loud, sometimes in private, but always with honesty. Your worst moment doesn't define you. What you do afterward does." A student seated up front lifted a hand. "Mr. Rains, do you ever regret live streaming that night? Wouldn't it have been better to handle it in private?" Derek had heard versions of that question more times than he could count. but he always paused to consider it anew. Keeping it behind closed doors would have been easier, for me, he said, but sometimes the truth demands discomfort. My ex had already begun rewriting the narrative, casting me as the sole villain. The live stream cut through that illusion before it could take hold. It was brutal. It was unfiltered. But it was the truth, and I've come to believe that truth, in its rawest form, is the only thing that really endures. Another student raised their hand. Whatever happened to your ex-wife? She found her own path, Derek replied. Last I heard, she's running a non-profit helping others avoid similar mistakes. People change, they reflect, they grow. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion, but redemption is always within reach. When the session ended, most of the students filtered out. One young man hung back near the stage. Mr. Rains, he said softly, almost nervously. Thank you. 5 years ago, I was someone else's Alan. Watching that video forced me to face myself. I ended the affair. I told my wife the truth. We went through hell, but we came out stronger. You showed me the real cost of lying. Derek never ceased to be amazed by these moments. The consequences of one night continued to echo in lives far beyond his own. That night, back at his hotel, Derek dialed Elena. How are the kids? He asked. Sophia won her debate tournament, she said. Her argument? That radical honesty is more important than ever in the digital age. Derek chuckled. Wonder where she got that idea. Obviously from her brilliant mother, Elena teased. No doubt about it. Oh, and Miguel asked why we never eat at Capitol Grill. I told him the steak's not worth the price. Can't argue with that logic. When do you fly in? Tomorrow afternoon. Dinner? Maybe somewhere with fewer traumatic flashbacks? It's a plan. I love you. I love you too. After hanging up, Derek leaned back and let the quiet fill the room. That night, a decade ago, had blown apart everything he thought he understood about love, success, and himself. But out of that wreckage, he'd pieced together a life that was more real, more grounded, and more meaningful than the one he'd left behind. Chapter 25. Revisiting the fallout. 15 years had gone by since the scandal first exploded when the filmmaker behind Truth at All Costs reached out to Derek with a proposal, a follow-up documentary. This new project, set a decade and a half after the public's fascination had peaked, aimed to explore the enduring effects of viral notoriety, how lives transform not just in the spotlight, but long after it fades. This time, Jenna agreed to participate. Their interviews were conducted separately. Derek and Jenna hadn't shared the same room since those fraught meetings in the boardroom all those years ago. Still, through thoughtful editing, their isolated testimonies became a unified meditation on consequence, growth, and the difficulty of moving forward without reconciliation. Jenna's segment struck the deepest chord. Every day I wake up aware that I'm the villain in someone's story, she admitted. It's a burden I carry, but I've learned how to channel it. I've counseled hundreds standing on the verge of infidelity, she went on. I show them my journey, what comes from taking that path. Some listen, some don't. But for every person who chooses honesty over deception, I feel a bit of redemption. She described her current career, supporting those betrayed by their partners, a twist of fate she acknowledged with both solemnity and a hint of irony. Who better, she suggested, to help make sense of a cheater's mindset than someone who once lived inside it? I can walk them through what their partner's probably thinking, how they justify it, what warning signs to recognize. I'm living proof. Cheaters aren't inherently evil. We're regular people who made terrible, damaging choices. Healing begins when you accept that. Derek's parts focused on rebuilding after being dismantled by public scandal. People always assume the worst part was the media circus, he said. But honestly, it wasn't. The hardest part was learning how to trust again. He spoke about dating Elena. She still jokes that I asked for her phone passcode on our third date, he said, laughing. She's not wrong. But the way she just handed it over and said, I've got nothing to hide, that moment told me everything. She was different. The film also revisited other familiar faces from the original documentary. Caroline Blackwood, now a prominent divorce attorney specializing in infidelity cases. Travis Connors and his wife, who had somehow emerged from the brink of collapse with their relationship stronger than before. Several others who had shared their stories in the first film returned to reveal how time had shifted their lives. Even Philippe, the maitre d' from the Capitol Grill, reappeared, speaking on how his restaurant had unintentionally become a symbol of truth-telling. But the most unexpectedly moving moment came from someone few thought would return: Alan Blackwood. Now in his late 60s, disbarred and living quietly in a small Florida apartment, Alan agreed to a single interview. Time had worn him down. He appeared frail, subdued, more introspective than anyone remembered. "I was unfaithful, repeatedly," he admitted. "Jenna wasn't the first, not even close. What happened at the Capitol Grill made me finally see myself for who I was. A man who used power to satisfy himself, with no regard for the wreckage left behind. I destroyed my marriage, threw away my profession, and dragged my name through the mud. But the worst part? I shattered trust. Jenna's, Caroline's, my children's. That's the real damage of betrayal, not just what you lose, but what you steal when others stop believing in you." He spoke about his efforts to make amends: therapy, community service, writing letters to those he'd wronged, most of which never received a reply. "I'm not asking to be forgiven," he said quietly. "But maybe if I own it, completely out loud, someone else will choose better." The documentary ended with a montage of silent moments, each one intimate and telling. Derek, at home, laughing with Elena and their kids as they built Lego towers on the living room floor. Jenna, in her counseling office, gently comforting a tearful woman who had just discovered her husband's affair. Alan, alone, seated at a worn kitchen table, writing in a frayed leather journal. Caroline, in her downtown office, helping a new client navigate the legal consequences of betrayal. Then came Derek's voice closing the film. "What happened that night at the Capitol Grill broke me, but it also laid the first stone on the path to something stronger. Public disgrace can forge private resilience. That night, the lowest point of my life, prepared me for everything that followed. Telling the truth comes at a cost, but keeping it buried, that costs far more." Chapter 26. Legacy. 20 years had slipped by since that unforgettable Tuesday night at the Capitol Grill. Derek Raines's story had become a modern parable, cited in classrooms, therapy sessions, and dinner table conversations across the globe. The notorious footage had eclipsed 200 million views, spawning endless reactions. Video breakdowns, analytical essays, and passionate debates on privacy, justice, and the true cost of honesty in the digital age. Raines Technologies had soared to the upper echelons of the fintech industry, now valued at an astonishing $50 billion. But what truly distinguished the company wasn't just its valuation, it was its radical, unwavering embrace of transparency. Today, countless organizations hand out the Raines Principles to every new employee, a code designed to foster sincerity in both work life and personal relationships. Derek and Elena's children had grown into remarkable young adults. Sophia, now 18, was on the brink of starting her journey at MIT, where she would explore the ethical dimensions of computing. Miguel, at 16, had clearly inherited his mother's sharp intellect and his father's moral compass. They had been raised with a deep understanding that their father's impact came not from success, but from transforming a public collapse into a foundation of wisdom. "Dad," Sophia asked one evening as they hung decorations for her graduation celebration, "do you think things could have worked out with Jenna if she had been truthful from the start?" Derek paused, thoughtful. Elena, chopping vegetables a few feet away, remained quiet, but listened closely. "Maybe," he finally answered. "When we're honest with each other, we preserve choices. Lies remove those choices. If she had told me early on, if she had said she wasn't happy, that someone else had caught her heart, we could have tried counseling, or ended things with dignity. At the very least, we would have faced the truth, not a fantasy. But lies don't stop, they multiply. And by the time I found them at that restaurant, the truth had been buried under too many layers to recover." "But then you wouldn't have met Mom," Miguel noted. Derek turned to Elena with a warm smile. That's true, he said. Sometimes the worst moments open the door to the best ones. But that doesn't erase how painful they were. It just means we were able to build something worthwhile from what remained. Later that evening, during the party, Derek stood quietly at the edge of the room, watching his family laugh and dance. His thoughts drifted back to how disaster had ultimately become a conduit for growth. The Capitol Grill incident had cast him first as a villain, then a kind of folk hero, and eventually a symbol of what it means to choose truth over pretense. Jenna had sent a card, forwarded through the nonprofit she now directed. She kept her distance but hadn't disappeared completely. The note was brief but heartfelt. Congrats on your milestone. May you always speak the truth with courage and with kindness. Jay. Derek handed it to Elena. She read it in silence. She's different now, Elena finally said. So are we, Derek replied. Public implosions force change. They make you grow or they break you. There's no middle ground. Elena gave him a knowing smile. Still no regrets? She asked, echoing a question from their wedding day. Not a single one, Derek said, his voice firm. It was a hard road, but it led me here. To you. To them. He gestured toward their children. To a life grounded in truth instead of illusion. And I wouldn't give up any part of it. Epilogue. Final frame. The Capitol Grill still sits on the corner of Madison and 52nd, serving overpriced steaks to power lunchers sealing deals or unraveling their lives. Table 47 is marked with a discreet plaque now, though most diners no longer know its story. Philippe eventually hung up his apron, but the new maitre d' continues the tradition of impeccable service, and usually discretion. Derek Raines, now in his late 50s, still leads his company with the same values that rescued his life: radical honesty, candid conversation, and the belief that integrity doesn't mean flawlessness, it means realness. He gives speeches, advises young entrepreneurs, and is occasionally still recognized as the man from that video. Elena Vasquez Raines revolutionized the pharmaceutical field with her work in drug delivery, earning herself a Nobel nomination. Their marriage, built on trust and transparency, has become a beacon to those around them, evidence that love founded on truth can endure far longer than the spark of romance alone. Jenna Sullivan now runs one of the most respected nonprofits in the country, focused on helping those reeling from betrayal. She chose never to remarry, channeling her time and energy into healing others and herself. Her TED Talk, The Cheater's Guide to Helping the Betrayed, has been viewed over 50 million times. Her days unfold in measured repetition, shaped by quiet dedication to her profession. Through it all, she's unearthed a new kind of purpose, helping others steer clear of the same misjudgments that once led her astray. Alan Blackwood died at 72, his heart giving out in solitude, but not in obscurity. His children, having made peace with his imperfections even if time hadn't healed every wound, stood to honor him. They reflected on the man he was before ambition consumed him. Caroline, the ex-wife who had since become a respected figure on the bench, was absent. Instead, she sent flowers and a simple card. To the man you could have been. What occurred that night at the Capitol Grill grew far beyond a viral footnote. It became a cultural flashpoint, an emblem of truth in an age dominated by screens and silence. It's now dissected in MBA ethics seminars. Therapists mention it in sessions with struggling couples. Parents use it to teach their kids about integrity and courage. But for Derek, none of that legacy means as much as what it changed for him personally. That evening marked the death of the life he'd known, and the beginning of everything better. It was the hardest moment he ever lived through, and the beginning of his transformation. A result of deception, and a triumph of truth. When the house is quiet and the children have drifted off, when Elena sits beside him, lost in her book, Derek sometimes lets himself return to that decisive night 2 decades behind him. He remembers crossing the restaurant floor, the weight of his phone a tether to everything crumbling, pausing on the verge of a choice, say nothing and keep the peace, or expose what needed to be seen. He chose the latter. He chose transparency. He stepped onto the steeper path, the one that led him somewhere real. That decision changed his life more than anything else ever had. Some stories conclude with forgiveness, others with retribution. But this one ends on rarer ground. A kind of redemption that reached everyone it touched, even if it didn't reunite them. It closes with lives reshaped by truth, wisdom earned and handed down, and the understanding that mistakes aren't our final chapters. It's what we do next that writes the rest. The Capitol Grill still overcharges for its steaks. People still grow apart. Hearts still fracture. But sometimes, in the aching space where honesty collides with hurt, in the narrow place between betrayal and healing, someone dares to speak the truth. And sometimes, that truth sets them all free.